What is up, everyone? Chris Manning here from the Locked on Cavs podcast with my co-host, Evan Damrell. On today's show, it's all about the numbers that explain Evan Mobley's sensational rookie season. Let's get into it. All right, the music you heard on the way, and at least in audio form, is from Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. And we want to thank you for making Locked on Cavs.
The name of the track, bro.
It's Factory Flame by Astro Radio. Go check them out. Thank you, by the way, for making Locked on Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Go hit that subscribe button. I'm Chris Manning, covering the Cavs and the NBA for places like Diamond Up Rocks and SB Nation's For the Sword. Evan is over at Facebook's Right the Nuke primarily, as well as For the Sword and some other places. Evan, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Not a whole lot, man. You know, I was thinking about this. We're recording these episodes back. Sorry to spoil the magic for you guys, but
I mean, I'm wearing the same shirt and hat, so I kind of figured people.
If you're listening on audio, the magic's ruined. I'm sorry. I was thinking about how the Browns signed a power forward this afternoon, and how if it was a different Cleveland team, the one we cover, we would be flabbergasted right now. Just to waste another roster space on a big man. But I'm good. Just getting my grind on at the gym, but all things considered, like I keep saying, I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Let's talk about some numbers. Let's talk about Evan Mobley. So, Evan, defensive, what we're going to do, segment one, it's going to be what defensive plus minus from dunks and threes, how in that number compares him to not only some of the best defenders in the league, but also his rookie class. Segment two, Mobley's numbers without Jared Allen. In segment three, Mobley's effective field goal percentage and some of his shooting numbers and what they tell us about his offensive game. By the way, we're doing a mailbag later in the week on Evan Mobley, so if you have questions, drop them to lockedOnCavs@gmail.com or tweet us at LockedOnCavs.
Mailbag.
That's right, it's a double M. And we'll do that. So, Evan, defensive plus minus, he's plus 2.3, which is in the top 4% of players. That's really good. That's absurd. Here's some of the bigs that have similar numbers to him. Jaren Jackson Jr., a rightful member of the all defensive team and should be at least, and like a defensive player of the year candidate, plus 2.5. Robert Williams, the third, aka Time Lord, plus 2.3. Al Horford, plus 2.3. Joel Embiid, ever heard of him, plus 2.0. There are some other guys in that range, all of that stuff. It is crazy that Evan Mobley, like, again, this is not like a one-for-one measure of this guy is thus better at this guy, the defense, all that stuff. But in terms of rough impact, in terms of what this says about where he already is, for him to be in that category as a rookie is bananas.
Yeah, it really is, especially considering the caliber of the players he's kind of grouped with. I know Al Horford is past his prime, still a high-impact defensive player for Boston, but Robert Williams, the third, is really, 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 really fucking good for his team. Joel Embiid is obviously incredible. He's an E candidate. Like, that's rare air to be in. Jaren Jackson Jr. is, at least in game one, tearing things up in the Western Conference semis, like, alongside John Morant, where, like, you can kind of see, yes, Darius Garland isn't the same player as John Morant physicality-wise, but, like, you could see the lethality of having, like, two all-star caliber 1-2 punches in the league like you do Memphis if you're Cleveland. But he's just, Evan Mobley's really good. Like, I know we keep saying this a lot. I'm trying to spin this as many different ways as possible, but the fact that he's this high is crazy. You hope it's sustained on, but I have a good feeling it will be, just because of how consistent he was on a night-to-night basis, just in terms of overall impact on the floor. But Chris, do you think it's far-fetched for me to say that he could be the first Cavs player to win a Defensive Player of the Year trophy?
No, I think he's on his way. Like, here are the bigs that played, I would say, substantial minutes that are better than him in this category. Draymond Green, who might be the best defensive player in the league right now. Rudy Gobert. Jared Allen.
Not bad.
Bam Adebayo.
Pretty good.
Bam Adebayo.
Pretty good.
Good. Jaren Jackson Jr., who we already mentioned. Robert Williams. And then we'll mention his name because he's an all-star, Anthony Davis. Those are and him and Anthony Davis have the same defensive estimated plus minus. By the way, Ricky Rubio tied with Evan Mobley in defensive plus minus as well. But, like, that is the class he is in. And this is his rookie season, in terms of his versatility, in terms of, I think, his impact, in terms of the way he impacts the game. Like, this is a defensive player of the year, all defense trajectory for Evan Mobley. I think that's like evidently clear. If you watch the tape, you look at the numbers, you consider the full, like, everything he did. This is a guy that he is on that track. If he continues developing, he, continues to get better, as he gets to 21, 22, 23, he is on that trajectory to be a guy that should contend for defensive player of the year, that should make all defense teams. Like, he is on his way to being like, it is not crazy. Like, if BetOnline, our friends at BetOnline had a future on like, hey, he's whatever to win like defensive player of the year at some point in his career, that's something that I would like consider like not an unreasonable thing to throw some money down on.
No, not at all. And I'm just gonna ask you, this is definitely like a broke question, and definitely just, you can't predict the future. You do not have a crystal ball on your desk, despite the many things you have on your shelf and in front of you.
You don't know. You can't see the full room.
That's fair, but I've seen plenty of pictures and videos of it, and how your wife wishes you would clean it up more. But
we cleaned it. We just cleaned this weekend. It's doing great. Don't out me.
Domestic bliss. But either way, what would you say Evan Mobley needs to do to kind of get into that, to definitely get into that like stratosphere of like, okay, this guy is a perennial defensive player of the year. This guy is a perennial all defensive candidate. Like, he is going to make his bread on what he does defensively, and he also isn't going to cry when he doesn't make an all-star team because of it.
Okay, we don't need to take shots at Rudy Gobert. I think consistency. I think number one is just like, you prove you can do this year over year over year. I think that gets you somewhere, right? Like, I think if you're a guy who can do this over time, like, that can get you somewhere. I think his steal rate and forcing turnovers is a thing. Like, it's a little flashy, but like, he had a pretty low steal percentage last year, relative to a position, like below average. Blocks a lot of shots relative to his position, but certainly I think could force some more turnovers as far as steal goes. I really think it's just like, if he continues to add little things to what he does, like maybe it's more steals, as I said, maybe it's, the switching gets highlighted in a different way. Like, there's just, I think it's just like really incremental improvement that could get him there. The other thing I think that hammers this home is just like, let's compare him to other rookies and other bigs. So, just the film tells you this already. There's only 2 rookies this year that had like insane defensive impact in terms of what the numbers say about their defensive quality. It's him and Herb Jones. Not on Herb. I love Herb Jones. Every Twitter's members like favorite pick right now. Those are the 2 guys that have like really positive defensive impact in terms of the expected plus minus.
And no disrespect to Herb Jones, who is awesome for the Pelicans, but there's a certain limit to where Herb Jones's defensive game, and I think that's fair to say. Like, where Mobley is just, I don't know. Herb's a bit more of a refined player coming out of Alabama than Evan Mobley was coming out of Southern Cal.
Yeah, he also might still just, he's absurd. Here's
he is absurd. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe like he falls into a certain short category where you're like, okay, this is who he is as a player. There's certain things he obviously can add to refine his game and make him better and more efficient on both ends of the floor. Mobley's potential just feels like it's completely untapped still. Like, it feels like they're only just breaking the surface on it.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so the other rookies in this class, Alperen Sengun from Houston Rockets, negative 0.8 in this rating. Scotty Barnes was dead even. Indiana's Isaiah Jackson was minus 0.9. Jeremiah Robinson was minus 0.4. You go down the list, there's not really rookies that measure out in terms of the metrics of having this crazy of a defensive impact. And I think when we're thinking about Mobley, we're thinking about what he was, where he's going. The baseline he has set in terms of every way you want to measure it is like very, very high. It is. The ceiling is the roof. Like, that is where Mobley is at defensively. And I think we should be considering this rookie season just like massively impressive. After the break, we're going to get into what he was without Jared Allen, who, if you want to nitpick him a little bit and say, oh, he played with Jared Allen as a rookie, that certainly boosted him. I think that's true. There's also some interesting, what the numbers kind of say about how little we know about him without Allen is kind of interesting, so we'll talk about that after the break. But Evan is first going to tell everyone about our PrizePicks.
All right, NBA fans, are you looking for daily fantasy option in the NBA? then you need to try the award-winning app PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy, and I love it, and me and Chris both will know you love it too. So if you're in Ohio like me, I just drive over the state border to Pennsylvania and pick 2 to 5 players, and an over/under on their projected win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. PrizePicks is safe and offers fast wins. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and the Google Play Store. PrizePicks offers a variety of options, and PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds, even steals. Mixed sports entries, and that's just what I'm about to light into, because they just don't have the NBA. They have options on college hoops, college football, NFL, MLB, soccer, MMA, and much more. So if you're interested, for a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our listeners. Users who sign up today get $50 if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point, but you must use code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available for Locked On Cavs listeners and fans everywhere. Sign up today and use code NBA for $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point.
All right, back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Now, make sure and go check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft, player rankings, and of course, big boards. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Evan, I want to ask you this before we dive into it. When I say Evan Mobley without Jared Allen, what words come to mind? What kind of word association are you playing when I say that?
Overwhelmed. Are we just doing single word association, or
I mean, you take it wherever you want. This is a free range.
So overwhelmed is just kind of where I'm going, because you notice this especially down the second half of the season at times, where Mobley was being asked to do so much for the Cavs that you saw a little bit of the cracks defensively at times, where you're like, but they're not like fault line cracks where like you have to completely tear this down and rebuild. They're just things you can maybe glaze over and just help refine and rebuild as you add muscle to his frame, or add maybe some extra support. I'll and maybe more reliable backup to big than Moses Brown on the floor. There's some avenues for the Cavs, but if they didn't have Jared Allen, I think they would be solid offensively, but I don't think they would be in that elite category like we talked about on the first episode this week, where they went from 25th to 6th in the league, which is a 19-point jump.
19 position jump, not point jump. Yeah,
19 position jump in defensive rating in the league, which is not possible if you don't have Mobley and Allen. I think it's not possible if you just have Mobley. I don't think it's possible if you have just Allen. You need both of those together to make it work. And I think, Mobley hurt a little bit at times by Allen defensively, but I think it's just that added luxury of letting him be free on defense that makes him better. And as a positive, it also made this 3 big lineup, and I thought was just a fad. And it's kind of Cleveland's bread and butter identity going forward, too. So I think if you don't have Mobley there, you don't really have the crux of what you are as a team this season.
I quibble if the 3 big thing is a thing going forward as like their identity.
If they get like a rotation caliber wing, like even if they draft Abaji from Kansas, like he may not even start, and Isaac Okoro clearly isn't like a penciled-in starter either. So rotation wing, yes, this changes.
I mean, the identity is Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, and Darius Garland. You figure out how to go from there. So in Evan Mobley without Jared Allen played 2,465 possessions according to Clean the Glass, minus 0.2 per 100 possessions in those minutes. The defense gave up 112.6 points per 100. Offensively scored 112.5. So like defensively, like really pretty solid in terms of everything. Like for the year, that would be like a pretty good defensive rating. You'd be happy with that in a lot of ways. It's pretty close to average. Offensively, kind of lacking. The thing about it is that there are very few consistent lineups amid that sample. So Garland, LeVert, Okoro, Markin, and Mobley is the most common of those lineups. They played 169 possessions. Garland, Okoro, Stevens, Markin, and Mobley played 140 possessions together. That's the second most. No other lineup of that threshold crossed 100. Interestingly, the both of those lineups I just laid out were above 10 points better per 100 possessions, and the second one with Okoro, Stevens, Markin, and Mobley and Garland had a defensive rating of 110 even, which is crazy. That's really good. Like I think Mobley at the 5 is also just something that, just because of the lack of seeing it in a massive sample, the lack of seeing it in a situation where we can fully have seen it with maybe like consistency with different guys he's playing with and stuff. That's what holds me back from feeling, I think the early stuff is encouraging, and it's something that I think as they go forward, like, it's going to be really important to see, like, if the Cavs are going to take a step in year 2, I don't know if this is like a top 3 thing that matters to their acceleration of what this is. It's going to matter for them taking a step forward in year 2 that they can be really, really successful with Mobley as the 5 and play that way. It's kind of their cleanest way to playing like 5 out to some degree, and that assumes Mobley can shoot and whatever. But like, him at the 5 is their cleanest way of playing quote unquote small ball.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think it all negates the need to maybe grab a backup big, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through your second rounders.
You shouldn't spend like real money on it, at least.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, where you don't use part of your mid-level exception, you can commit the full mid-level to getting Darius Garland a proper backup, or you round up your wing depth doing that, or you make your focus off season. Let's support this big 3 we've assembled of Garland, Mobley, and Allen by adding shooting, length, athleticism to complement them defensively and offensively. Or you don't have to commit, like you said, actual resources to backing up Allen. And I also think it just gives the Cavs such an interesting wrinkle because, like you said, if he is more of a real shooter heading into season 2, even if it's not at like an insane rate where he's taking like 5-6 threes a game, like, you don't want that because he's fully comfortable with it this time. But if he's able to show that potential where teams have to respect him as a 3-point threat, so if like a team left him wide open, he still can hurt them for it. That acts and creates a lot of unique offensive opportunities for the Cavs, so they could explore a lot of fun things just in terms of their lineups in general. Like, they did take Agbaji, where they could go Garland, Agbaji, Markin, and Love, Mobley, if they really are determined to like stick with going big like that. Like, that's 4 shooters right now, and if Mobley's shooting, that's 5. You can play true 5-out ball and really let Darius Garland thrive in that scenario too, where he has like so many options, pick and roll, pick and pop, where like the Cavs can really hit a new level offensively that you necessarily just didn't see from them at all this season. Where like, yes, they were solid out times offensively, you could take themselves to the next stratosphere as well. And also, it's just the same thought process too, where even if they aren't going small, if Mobley is more of a 3-point threat and at least a respect, it makes Jared Allen's life a lot easier because it drags defenders out of the paint. It makes Isaac Okoro's life easier because it drags defenders out of the paint, allows him to cut easier, and Chris can scare the Jesus out of me in the press at the same time. Ditto for Sexton, ditto for LeVert, even for Garland as well, who can get easier looks and maybe draw contact at the attacking the basket as well and getting the free throw. If you're a regular listener, and check it out if you haven't. We talked about it, like maybe things Darius can do to improve his game, but there's the potential there and the building blocks there. It's just, how does he build it out, and what were his assignments heading into this offseason? Like, do the Cavs want him to round out his offensive game more, or do they want him to really tap into saying, hey, we really want you to get comfortable defending 5s because we're not going to go sign a big man in free agency or get somebody through the draft? And they may be more so asking to do that, and then the shooting comes later, and I punch my mic. But either way, it's just, there's different avenues the Cavs could take with Mobley, and ditto for the player, Mobley the player as well.
Number one, you made it 2/3 of the way through, and we didn't almost hit that bingo card. It's like the safest one we could have hit. You almost got there. Secondly,
I know.
Did you see the clip that his trainer posted of specifically describing getting open weak side 3-pointers off of strong side pick and roll action? I was like, huh. This is the shot Evan Mobley will take when they run Darius Garland, Jared Allen pick and rolls. Huh.
Yeah, like, I think I heard that. It makes you think, you're like, oh, that'd be fun if that could actually be a thing. But it just depends on what his assignments and what he's asked to work on this offseason.
What he wants. I don't feel like we know like what Evan.
What he wants to do too. Like, what if he says like, well, I don't want to be like forced into the corner, well, because Darius and
Well, like specifically, the shot was like an
Jared
above
just
the
kind of-
the clip. The clip was like was like an above the break three, which is like you put your eyebrows up and stare at that a little bit. But it's like do you remember how it was like with Anthony Davis? There's all this like chatter of like he doesn't want to play the five, like and stuff. Like I don't think know like what Mobley like feels about like what his like optimal position is, and that's just like a
at
little
least
thing.
publicly, he's made it
Yeah,
known that he doesn't care. But like, he's
yeah,
not
but
going
I
to rock
mean,
the boat.
there's a windy nugget before the draft that like when he wrote the Allen story in the fall when the Cavs were playing really well and everything was kind of humming along, he had said like Mobley's camp was like you didn't know how they would fit together and when they gave out that contract and stuff. So like there's we'll monitor this going forward. I think them separated is obviously not like the plan, but I think them finding success when Mobley's at the five and when Allen is there without Mobley, those finding success in those lineups will be key. It's just again like the numbers from year one with this are so. I have no idea what to make of them because it's like like the most common lineup was one that didn't happen until like necessity at the end of the year, and it was like 7% of like all the possessions with Mobley and no Allen. So it's just like very hard to understand what that is. All right, after the break, we're gonna get into Evan Mobley's really one weakness as a rookie, and that's how effective he was at putting the ball in the basket. But first, going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. For instance, BetOnline has the Heat as minus 355 favorites over the 76ers in their first-round matchup, and the Suns are minus 285 favorites against the Dallas Mavericks in that Western Conference series. They'll have odds for all of the series as we go on here and deep, not just now, but into the conference finals and the NBA finals, which start in like a month, and that seems a while away. BetOnline is where the game starts. Check them out today at betonline.net. All right, last segment here on Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris. That's Evan. Evan, let's talk about Evan Mobley's offense because it's like kind of it's interesting to me that in the almost hour we've been recording today and the Monday episode and then this episode, we haven't talked a lot about his offense. So I want to ask you before we dive into this.
There's not much to talk about.
Well, this is my question. What do you make of him as an offensive player as we wrap up his
potential of
rookies?
it.
So what do you make of him as an offensive player right now is what I'm trying to ask you.
I mean, yeah, like I said, the potential is exciting and enticing in terms of playmaking, shooting, attacking, like just different ways he can impact the game. But right now, he's effective at what he does, but I think the Cavs are asking more of him defend than they are offensively. And I think at least when the team was more healthy, had Garland, Sexton, Rubio, Allen, LeVert, like you're asking Mobley to maybe be the fourth fiddle offensively at times, and I think that kind of gave him the luxury of having to worry too much about his offensive game. And just with how efficient and effective he was, like most things with his, gives you a good like base camp to kind of build off of, and then you just watch where it goes because that's where the potential of things and the excitement comes into play. But kind of just a cool season offensively, but again, the Cavs are asking him to make more of an impact defensively, so he's expending more energy on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I also just think it's fair to just look at him and say this is a guy that hasn't like figured out how to be like an effective offensive player yet. There's obviously a lot of potential there. Like I don't know if you saw the clip of him from like playing in like a high school game or something, the Euro step he hit where he like covered all the ground from the corner to the rim in like 2 steps, and you're like, holy hell. This is like a one of one bendy body. But you just look at like the numbers of the theme of this episode, looking at the numbers of this. Last year his effective field goal percentage 52.3%, that's 24th percentile of bigs. This tells you like how good he was defensively, that despite him not being that particularly good at scoring, he was like an incredibly essential player to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So to dive in a little bit further, shot 73% at the rim, which is above average for bigs, but only took 46% of his shots there, which is below average for bigs. He has a weird habit of he took a lot of long mid-range shots. So last year, 38% on long mid, which is in the 60th percentile. It's not good, but that's like a high percentage. in terms of actually making them, but he was in the top 15% of bigs of taking those long mid-range shots. Also, just had really kind of struggled to shoot in that short mid, that 4 to 14 foot range. 38% in the short mid, which is 36th percentile, and 34% of his shots come there, which is near the top percent. So he took a lot of shots in that short mid, did make a lot of them, which is not great for a big. So twice an episode, unbelievable. So where Mobley is shooting for me, I think we'll see how he gets pushed towards the rim, more towards that short mid, and we'll see what the 3-point shot kind of looks at as we go forward. It's just like how this gets figured out is interesting because of the Jarrett Allen of it all, because of what Mobley's offensive potential is as a passer, as a guy that can play with the ball in his hands a little bit and get downhill and get off floaters and dunks and some pull-ups with his frame. This is just like the thing where like how he rounds out his offensive game and kind of takes that step forward on offense. It's probably, I think, pretty clearly, to me, it is very clearly the thing about year 2 that we should think about the most in terms of where he's going.
Yeah, I think yes, and I wonder what he's going to be like defensively as well. Like, what is he going to add to his game?
It's just like it's just like he's already so good on that end, and if like he is going to take a step forward,
that's fair.
There's just like the measurable impact in terms of like what would make the Cavs a better team, and going from being like kind of like an offensive team with like a good defense to being a more balanced, I think, roster. Like I don't see getting back Sexton will help, and like maybe LeVert is better with the full off season and health and all that stuff. The most logical plays we can look at and say, hey, if a big leap happens on offense here that's going to help the team improve on offense, it's kind of got to come from Evan Mobley, I think.
Yeah, I think it does need to come from him. It also depends on maybe who you bring in free agency, who you bring in through the draft as well, just because there are different variables at play there too. But I think we're just becoming more comfortable with like finding his shots, finding his spots where he's more comfortable. Again, I think having an all-star elite point guard and Darius Garland paired next to him has made his life so much easier. I was curious when you're sharing those numbers, how many of those baskets just came off of an assist, because I wonder if maybe there are scenarios where he could become a bit of not a full-time shot creator, obviously, but there's times where like maybe the Cavs like initiate offensive sets or let him be like the key fulcrum like he was at times, but his passing options are kind of smothered by the defense, and he's like, okay, I can take this shot, I can take a mid-range jumper, like whether it's at the post or it's at the hot top of the key. Like there's certain scenarios you just having a little bit more of a reliable shot, and I think becoming a free throw shooter is paramount too. Like that's my other big gripe with him offensively is he left a lot of freebies at the line this season because he is going to get fouled a lot more, because especially if the Cavs ask him to play more 5, like he's going to be met with more physicality at that spot. And if he gets to the line more often, if that's a more reliable part of his game, that's just going to make things so much for both him and the Cavs, especially like down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, 66% on free throws is tough. Maybe that, and then maybe leads to some skepticism about his shot. Like typically free throw percentage can correlate to the 3-point shot. We'll see how that kind of looks in year 2. So 67 of Mobley's shots and his made field goals were assisted. So that's in the top 25% of all bigs. Interestingly, 71% of his shots at the rim are assisted. That's in the bottom 75% or so of bigs. Which that just tells me that like Jarrett Allen is getting all of the lobs, and that Garland and Mobley didn't quite have that like same lob connection. But it's also lob connection would be a good like free idea to someone. I'm not going to say that yet, but there's a lob connection, love connection kind of thing, kind of go there, kind of like that. But you have a guy that I think is not getting those like rim attempts. So it's like, how does this work? And I think honestly, when I was watching Giannis play the Celtics, I was watching Giannis like destroy the wall. And I kind of want to see Mobley try to like destroy it. Like if he could have the handle, have the speed, have the nimbleness to kind of do some of that from the elbow and like maybe create a looks out of there and like find Allen, find the shooters. Like that to me is like a template that I would kind of want to see, because I do think if we got to the playoffs and we saw that, what opposing teams would do would be to probably wall up Mobley a little bit. That might be a thing you would see. That would be like the first thing I would suspect they would try and see how he responds to it. And like he's gonna have to figure that out going forward, I would suspect.
which dragon of Daenerys's do the White Walkers use to finally break down the wall?
You're asking me to remember specific plot points of the end
Is
of
it Rhaegal or Viserys? Viserion.
I think
it's Viserion.
Yeah,
it is Viserion because I think Rhaegal is killed by.
You're the one rewatching that.
Doing the rewatch, and with my SO, and I'm biting my tongue through all the bullshit because we're about to hit it. We just watching Tyrion Lannister go from the most clever man in Westeros to the dumb. Anyways, I think if like you said, breaking down the wall just made me think of that because we're about to hit that point. But probably kind of gets that Giannis level, like not HGH, but like just glow up plan where he just becomes an absolute monster muscle wise.
Let's be clear.
That's just the game entirely.
Not performance enhancers, and even it doesn't obviously like Giannis is the best player in the world in my opinion right now. Like, and it's kind of clear.
Yeah,
I'm not saying Mobley needs to get to that explicitly because that is like an insanely high bar, but like that is the model to kind of like make it work playing with another big, make it work kind of navigating the stuff without a really consistent pull up shot, and also just like I think taking and having the specter of that he's going to take some of these shots and like make the pull up from 18 feet, make the occasional pull up 3. That will also loosen some things up, I think. Look, I also just I would be curious to see like if more so defensive tweaks, and there will be some obviously because that's just how this works. What offensive tweaks they make to try to get him different looks, because like he's basically taking a lot of the shots you don't want players to take. Is kind of like the thing that I wonder if they try to tweak where he's getting his looks in year 2, and like what and where he kind of looks to get as well, and just how he creates his own. Like there's just, this is to me like very clearly like the when I've looked at this and looked at some other stuff and started like trying to not look ahead to next year fully because I don't want to do that to myself yet, because I want to have time. This is the thing that I think will swing the season in a lot of ways, and like what will swing where Mobley is in year 2. I really, really believe that what his offense looks like is the thing that we got to look at as year 2 goes along, and we'll, I'm sure, do a preview of Mobley's offense come the fall, which is both really soon and a long, long way away.
I don't want to think about how close it is. I want to enjoy the fact that it's only it is almost summer though, and this fall comes soon after. If you're a preschooler, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, I'm intrigued to see if you were like,
I don't know if we have any preschoolers on the pod though. Listen to the pod. Do you think we do?
Yeah. Maybe they're just listening to the backseat as their parents drop them off at school or something. But yeah. Either way, I do agree with that assessment that the way the Cavs kind of function next season is just they'll go where Evan Mobley take offensively, because I think they have their superstar in Darius Garland. They have like their tried and true pick and roll between him and Allen, and just, you know, having shooters definitely helps too. But like Mobley being the X factor is fun, and I feel comfortable in betting that he will probably level up in, I'll say it, a substantial way that really does benefit the Cavs on both ends of the floor.
Can't wait to see it. The video clip that his trainer posted got me raised some eyes, like got me curious to see like what other kind of little snippets we get, because you're absolutely not seeing him play in summer league. That's absolutely not happening. There's no need for it. But the little snippets we get of workout stuff from Mobley this summer should be fun currency, I think, as we go here. Yeah. Also over the weekend, see Darius Garland tweeting about want to see an MLS game in Nashville. So big weekend for social Cavs content, Evan.
Yeah, it really was. As somebody who tried to stay off social entirely because he got yelled at for what things he was tweeting as a joke on the podcast account. It was the new intern we hired, man. I just can't control him.
Yeah, his name's Evan Damrell, and you're the intern, except you're not an intern.
I say I'm paid an intern. No, it's Finnegan the Cat, the chaotic destroyer.
No, that's
Homie can't barely operate a phone. He can barely feed himself some days. He can barely clean. Asking to run a social media account for a podcasting, the #1 Cleveland Cavaliers podcast is
at least daily Cleveland Cavaliers. But, we're just it's a communal effort here. But we're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about where Mobley goes from here. That's obviously going to focus a lot on his offense. We're going to talk about, I think, his shooting. There's going to be some fun stuff in that one. Until then, I'm Chris. That's Evan. Be well. And if you want to go check and listen, go check out Locked On NBA wherever you're listening to Locked On Cavs right now. Peace.